Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest forecast from Polymarket in the 2024 presidential election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, in which as of right now the former president has roughly a 57% chance of winning this election, which is lower when he was facing Joe Biden instead of Kamala Harris. And Harris has 40% chance, which is actually significantly higher than Joe Biden's 8%, believe it or not, facing Donald Trump. So this is the current map as of right now. We're going to be analyzing and taking a look at the swing and important key battleground states. So we're not going to be taking a look at any of the solid blue or solid red states like I would say Washington State or maybe New York or even a state like Kansas, Missouri. No, we're only going to be focusing on the swing states like Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, you name it, you get the idea. And we're going to be filling off the map according to the forecast from Polymarket. And we're going to be taking a look at some of the RCP averages from some of these swing states and some of the polls. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on any of my content, press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you are interested, we have memberships. You can find the link to that in the description section. Now back to the topic of today's video. So obviously we have the comfortable likely states for both of these candidates. Kamala Harris is comfortably going to win Colorado and New Mexico, no doubt about it. And then you have Donald Trump's likely states. Texas is going to be likely for him. He's going to comfortably win the state of Florida as well. It's a no-brainer, and Ohio and Iowa will be comfortable for him as well. But then you have the, I would say, deciding factor states like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and New Hampshire that are the true swing states. Obviously, you have, I would say, quote-unquote swing states like Ohio, which is not really a swing state. You know what I'm saying? Colorado, not really a swing state. The real swing states are the ones that are filled in gray, that I left in gray. I did not fill them out on this map, as you can tell. So let's start off with the West Coast, and we'll make our way up to the Northeast from the Rust Belt states. Starting off with Nevada, as of right now, Donald Trump and Republicans lead in the state. They have a 63% chance, roughly 2/3, to Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party's 37% chance of winning this state on the general election level. So overall, Nevada is going to be lean for the former president, according to the forecast from Polymarket. And let's take a look at some of these RCP averages from the state of Nevada as well. But before we actually do that, let's take a look at the national average lead for Donald Trump. He is actually expanding on his margin, by the way, because he was only up by 1.7 the last time I checked this, and now he's up by 2% over Kamala Harris on average with the five-way race when you factor in those third-party independent candidates, Cornel West, RFK, and Jill Stein. He's up by 2%. 46 for Harris to Donald Trump's 48%. So he's not quite getting 50 just yet. And he actually was doing better against Joe Biden than where he is against Kamala Harris. So it is true that Kamala Harris is polling better than someone like Joe Biden. But it is not true that Kamala Harris is beating Donald Trump, because she is currently trailing him, even though she's doing slightly better than someone like Joe Biden. Now we take a look at Nevada polling. So we actually have two brand new polls from this month from the state of Nevada, from Bloomberg Morning Consult and the Insider Advantage from July 15th to the 16th. And then you have the newer one from July 24th to the 28th, pretty recently, among 800 likely voters and 454 registered voters. And so the latest one actually has Kamala Harris up by 2%. According to the Bloomberg and Morning Consult. This is a left internal poll. This is a bias towards the Democratic Party, so obviously not the most accurate thing. And then you have the Insider Advantage, which is obviously a right-leaning pollster, as you can tell, has Trump up by 10. So these two polls, in my opinion, are completely outrageous. Both of them are. There's like no good poll that we're seeing so far. But on average, you find Trump up with a 4-point lead in the state, which is going to be considered a lean margin. And if you don't trust Real Clear Politics, you take a look at 538 and other websites. 538 is probably more on the accurate side, I would say. Actually, they underestimated Trump all the time, but still they show that Donald Trump is still winning this state on average by a lean margin with RCP. So this is not an outlier, you guys. And now move on to the Sunbelt state of Arizona. This is going to be a border state, so it's really important. And as of right now, Donald Trump has a 66% chance of winning the state, which is slightly higher than his lead in Nevada to Kamala Harris's 34%. So this is also going to be considered a lean margin for Donald Trump. According to the Polymarket forecast, he's going to win Arizona. And now we take a look at some of the polls from RCP. So we actually have 4 brand new polls conducted from this month from the state of Arizona. The latest one, Bloomberg and Morning Consult, has Kamala up by 2%. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a left-leaning internal poll, favors the Democratic Party. And then you have the most reliable ones, I would say, the highly rated ones on 538, The Hill and Emerson, in which it shows Donald Trump with a 5-point lead, guys. 5-point lead. This is probably the most accurate pollster out of them all that we see up here. 5% for Donald Trump. And then the other ones have him up by way more, 6 and 8. So on average, Trump's lead in Arizona is basically the same in Nevada by 4 percentage points. Not looking good for Kamala Harris. And now we move on to the state of Georgia, in which Kamala Harris hopes to win this. Maybe she can do better in Atlanta, the metropolitan area, the suburbs, and someone like Joe Biden. Maybe she can really have enthusiasm among the African-American support. Maybe she can have turnout among there. We'll see. Let's take a look at Poly Market right now. Donald Trump and Republicans have a 65% chance of winning the state of Georgia to Kamala Harris's 35%. And now we take a look at some of the RCP polling averages. So on average, Donald Trump has roughly a 3.6% lead in the state of Georgia, and a left-leaning pollster, Morning Consult, has it a dead tie. So the fact that it's a tie, she's not even winning, and a left-biased poll goes to show you she's probably not going to win this state, because Kamala Harris has no lead in any poll, guys. I believe there's 6 polls right here. 5, actually. We're taking a look at 5 polls, and literally, she has no lead whatsoever. Trump's up by 2, Trump's up by 1. And then you have one that's really swaying things in favor of Donald Trump. I think that's really overestimating him. He's up by 10, so I'm not going to trust that. I think that's an outlier. And then he's up by 5, according to 1,000 likely voters. So when he averages out, he's up by 3.6. In reality, I think it's actually going to be closer, because you have the one he's up by 10, which I just don't believe that. And so realistically, he's going to win this state by a tilt margin as of right now, and that's exactly what the forecast from Poly Market is suggesting. And now we move on to the state of North Carolina. And as of right now, Donald Trump has a 74% chance to Kamala Harris's 26% in the state of North Carolina. So he's going to win that by probably, I would say, a lean margin. And now let's take a look at some of the RCP polling from this state. So on average, according to 2 polls, Donald Trump has a lead of 5.5%, 49% to Kamala Harris's 43.5% in the state of North Carolina. And then you have the 2 polls, The Hill, Emerson College, Bloomberg, Morning Consult, in which shows Donald Trump up by 2 and then 9 percentage points. And keep in mind, The Hill and Emerson's a highly accurate rated pollster. I believe they have an A+ rating on 538, so it's really trustworthy. And the fact that he's up by 9, according to a reliable source, I would say, with 1,000 registered voters, is not good news for Kamala Harris. So these are the margins in the state of North Carolina. And you can say that this is actually a likely margin, but I'm going to be nice for Kamala. I'll leave it in as lean for right now. And then we have the state of Virginia, in which Kamala Harris is favored. She has a 78% chance of winning this state, according to the forecast from Poly Market, to Donald Trump's 22%. Let's take a look at what RCP suggests. So we don't have a lot of data from this state, but according to New York Times and Siena, Harris has a lead of 5%, which is actually better than Joe Biden, because believe it or not, on the RCP averages, on average, Trump was defeating Joe Biden in the state of Virginia by 0.4%. So this is roughly a 5.5% swing towards the left in favor of Kamala Harris. We're going to be feeling this lean for as of right now. And now we're going to be moving on to some of these Rust Belt states, starting off with Minnesota. So as of right now, Kamala Harris is favored by 83% to Donald Trump's 17% chance in this state. Let's take a look at what RCP is suggesting. So as of right now, Kamala Harris is destroying Donald Trump in this state. She's up by 8 points because she's actually expanding her lead. She was recently up by 6%, and now she's doing 2% better, I would say, a couple points better. She is getting past 50% at 51 to Donald Trump's 43% in the state of Minnesota. She's doing vastly better than Joe Biden. On average, Biden was only up by a couple points, like 1 to 2, and now she's up by 8%. All of a sudden, according to Fox, she's up by 6 with 1,071 registered voters, but on average, you find that she's up by 8. But realistically, I think this is overestimating her, because obviously this is greater than Joe Biden's margin in this state back in 2020. He had that BLM momentum, which really pushed those suburbs here to the left in Minneapolis, obviously what happened to George Floyd. So I don't think she's going to pass Joe Biden's numbers. At best, she'll get tied at 7%, which is what his margin was, because you have the poll, which shows she's up by 10, just like in Georgia, which it showed Trump's up by 10, which is really swaying this, and I don't trust that. So realistically, I would say she's up by probably 5 to 6 points more on the accurate side. But overall, this is going to be considered a likely margin for Kamala Harris and the state of Minnesota. And now we move on to Wisconsin, in which as of right now, it's going to be tilt for Donald Trump. He's only up by 55% to Kamala Harris's 45%, which is a 10% difference, and that's going to be tilt. And right now, according to RCP, Trump is in fact leading in this state. But it is the narrowest lead of all leads, guys. He's up by 0.2% in the state of Wisconsin. Keep in mind that this was the reddest Rust Belt state in 2016. It voted to the right of Michigan and Pennsylvania, and in 2020 as well. Donald Trump has a lead of 48.2%. So Kamala Harris is exactly 48%, a lead of 0.2%, and we have roughly 5 polls from this state. The latest one has Kamala up by 2%, and then the one from Fox News has Trump up by only 1. The Hill and Emerson, the highly rated pollster, has it a dead tie at 47 to 47%, and the rest has Trump up by 1 and 1. So it's extremely close. It's basically a toss-up at this point, but as of right now, it's going to tilt for the former president. And then we move on to the state of Michigan, in which, as of right now, Kamala Harris, believe it or not, is beating Donald Trump in the state according to the Polymarket forecast. She has a lead of 52% to Donald Trump's 48% in this state. So that's going to be a tilt margin for the Vice President Kamala Harris in the state of Michigan. Now, keep in mind, this state was the bluest Rust Belt state of the 3. Michigan voted to the left of both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So if she does win it, I won't be surprised. I think she very well can. And now let's take a look at what RCP says in this state. So on average, Kamala Harris, guys, has a 2 percentage point lead in the state of Michigan. She's doing vastly better than Joe Biden because on average, Trump is beating Joe Biden in this state by around 2 percentage points. This is roughly a 4% shift to the left in favor of the vice president. She's polling at 48.3% to Donald Trump's 46.3% in the state according to the RCP averages. Now, what's really swaying this is the Bloomberg and Morning Consult, which is really a left-leaning internal biased poll towards the Democratic Party, which shows she's up by 11. That's completely outrageous. That's nonsense. So when you really average this out, Donald Trump is realistically winning by 1 percentage point. So this is basically kind of a toss-up at this point, but she is narrowly winning it according to the forecast from Polymarket. And now we move on to the state of Pennsylvania, in which Kamala Harris is also winning this state by 53 to 47%, basically the exact same margin. And Michigan actually slightly more bluer by roughly 1 percentage point to the left. And so that's also going to be considered a tilt blue margin for Kamala Harris. She's also narrowly winning Pennsylvania according to the forecast. And now we take a look at what RCP says. So on average, Donald Trump has the greatest lead of any Rust Belt state in Pennsylvania, obviously where he got shot at. So I think that can really boost turnout in Pittsburgh. Obviously, that was next to Butler County. Donald Trump has a lead of almost 3 percentage points, which is really shocking. And this is where the polls become off. They become way off, and I don't trust them, is because when you have Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, in which the polls show that Wisconsin is going to vote to the left of Pennsylvania, that's really not realistic at the end of the day because Wisconsin always is more red than Pennsylvania. And the fact that the polls say Pennsylvania is going to be way more red than Wisconsin, I just don't believe that. So honestly, it doesn't really matter at this point. Trump has a 48.2% lead to Kamala Harris's 45% in the state, and she's not leading in a single poll. The one from Fox with the highest, I would say, sample size at 1,034 registered voters has it a dead tie. And Bloomberg and Morning Consult, a left-leaning internal poll, has Trump up by 4. That is scary for Kamala Harris. The New York Times Siena has Trump up by 1. So, and he's even up by 7 in the Insider, which is not good news for Kamala Harris. This is actually going to be considered a lean margin according to RCP for Donald Trump, but according to the forecast, which is what we're using for this video, it's going to be tilt for Kamala Harris. And also, we have New Hampshire before we end off this video to fill out. So as of right now, Kamala Harris has roughly a 74% chance of winning New Hampshire to Donald Trump's 26%. Let's take a look at RCP. So on average, Kamala Harris has a lead of almost 6%, 5.7 to be exact, in the state of New Hampshire. She's polling at 51 to Donald Trump's 45.3 percentage point. He does not lead in a single poll, and I don't think he ever did against Joe Biden. Tell me if I'm wrong, in this 5-way race with all the third-party candidates included. And she's up by 4, she's up by 6, she's up by 7 in another poll. All good numbers for her. So that's going to be actually likely for Kamala Harris. And that's exactly what this forecast shows. So actually 260 electoral votes for Kamala Harris to Donald Trump's 278. So this is the, a final forecast as if right now the updated one between Harris and Trump from Polymarket. Obviously RCP is a little different. That shows a little bit more of a lead for Donald Trump than where he's at right now. So let me know what states you agree with or disagree with in the comment section down below and why. And one last final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. We're so close to 4,000 subscribers. Press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. Also, we have memberships. You can find a link to that in the description section if you are interested. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.